Hello and welcome. My name is Timothy Halloran, and we're talking about a total lunar eclipse coming up this July 27th, 2018. And appropriately, keeping up with the theme of the times, I'm using a brand new camera and microphone that we are doing an experimental testing phase. And so, fingers crossed, the video's actually recording, the audio's actually hearing, and everything goes according to plan. Because the nature of the times is that there is a great chance that things do not necessarily go according to plan. There is a highly erratic, restless instability, like an electricity, coursing through our veins, coursing through the collective, that is instigating a lot of change, as well as the potential for liberation. And so let's talk about this eclipse. This is an unusually potent lunar eclipse for a number of different reasons. Astrologers and astronomers are going on about how this is the longest total eclipse of the century. Not only that, it's joined with Mars retrograde. And Mars retrogrades the least amount of time in the sign of Aquarius. This total eclipse, joined with Mars, is also square to the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus himself. And so we have this very charged, restless, innovative, groundbreaking time. And there's this deep and unconscious desire to do things differently, coming from our own soul, coming from our own unconsciousness. And one of the ways that our own life and experience tends to set up circumstances where we can figure out newer and better and different ways of doing things than how we've done them in the past is by creating challenges where we have to make changes, we have to make adjustments because things are not going according to plan, and that requires us solving problems on a different dimension than where those problems were created. The famous Einstein quote, Mr. Einstein being a highly Aquarian soul himself. So this is a time where we must necessarily be flexible. We must take things with a grain of salt. One of the big opportunities is to really master handling an erratic nervous system. What tools, techniques we can use to calm our nervous system? Well, this is a wonderful time to really be exploring what it is that allows us to center ourselves in what is most important for us, our own individual journey in actualizing our truer, deeper desires of who we are as independent, unique individuals. So this eclipse falls on the Aquarius-Leo polarity. Eclipses happen every 6 months when the sun conjoins with the moon's nodes, which are those magical points where the moon passes the plane of the ecliptic, where all of the planets are aligned on this singular plane for the most part. This is a very important plane in astrology, and where planets pass this plane creates nodes. So the sun joins the moon's nodes, the points in which the moon passes the ecliptic every 6 months, and this coincides with eclipses, the new and full moons that happen while the sun is aligned with the moon's nodes is what creates the phenomenon of an eclipse. Now, astrologically speaking, what are the moon's nodes? They are indicators of evolutionary direction and transformation. In our own birth chart, the moon's nodes are of critical importance across all branches of astrology in really revealing our deeper soul's underlying journey, our evolutionary unfolding throughout life. The moon's south node is the past, what is known, what is familiar, as well as the talents and traits we bring in from the past. The moon's north node is more so unfamiliar, but it is our potential. It is what our soul desires to grow and step into in order to continue to evolve. And so the moon's nodes reveals this natural mechanism of evolutionary tension. And this evolutionary mechanism shapes much of our life and our progress and unfolding as we continue to live and breathe. And that's because the past, again, is known, it's familiar, but it's also what's old, where we get stuck. the ruts that we're trying to get out of. The moon's north node, on the other hand, is where we want to grow and expand in potential, and yet it is more so unknown. And so there is a natural resistance towards that unknown future, and we tend to go back and forth and back and forth. This dynamic is particularly brought up during eclipse season, which is why eclipses are always profound times of change. And astrologers use the terms such as eclipse wormhole or portal, because it's as if we're going through this dimensional blender and everything is shifting. Things from the past that are no longer working or needed or relevant are being let go in order to create space. That way new things and new dimensions and new patterns and possibilities can be brought in. And it can be a very erratic type of period while we go through eclipses, because it's like everything changes and we're not necessarily familiar with what these changes are yet. We don't know what the future is bringing yet, and yet there's a desire to get there, and that can create this frustration. This can be absolutely a very frustrating, emotionally, instinctually reactive type of period. I mean, let's look back at the last new moon, which always sets the tone for the moon cycle to come. The last new moon was a partial solar eclipse in Cancer opposite to Pluto. Very, very emotional, very tumultuous. I don't know if I've ever received so many comments complaining about my last video on the new moon, because I just wasn't going to be able to do it right for people. People are feeling a lot this cycle. There's a lot of past stuff that is being processed, and yet it's not totally known what all of this past stuff is, because a lot of this exists in our unconscious or our feelings. Well, this total lunar eclipse is going to illuminate a lot of these feelings, and this lunar eclipse, being just a degree away from Mars retrograde, really carries this theme of liberating ourselves out of the patterns, the dynamics, the way that we use and channel our drive, our energy, our passion. Mars. Mars is our confidence to initiate our own direction through life. Mars is our unique and individual and independent desires. And they're oftentimes instinctful. Mars desires can be, this is how I like to have sex. This is what I want to do. These are the groups that I want to be with. These are the groups that I'm no longer wanting to be with. This is a summertime of makeups and breakups and friend groups changing, how we're directing our energy in terms of how we use technology. I mean, here's the point. All of this Aquarius that's going on is being ruled by Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius. Uranus is stationing retrograde at the 2nd degree of Taurus the 2nd week of August. This Uranus stationing retrograde is really bringing up these themes for independence. Uranus is the planet of the future, breaking through, liberation, and breaking out of the chains of bondage, which can also be said to be the past. This is liberation from the past. This is liberation from the known, is Uranus. Now, Uranus, particularly stationing in the sign of Taurus, wants to create stability in a period of time where stability probably isn't so easy to achieve. And that's due to a number of things. The day and age in which we live, how we use technology, how we've been conditioned in the past. It's like there's all of these invisible strings and things that we're attached to, duties, people, responsibilities. And here's the point. When we're dealing with a lot of Uranus and Mars that are both critical players in this lunar eclipse, there can be no lack of freedom. Absolutely not. There can be no lack of space, in particular, when we're dealing with Uranus in Taurus. The whole point of a lot of these challenges and experiences and restlessness and frustration is giving us the momentum, the push. Hey, we've got to make changes. We've got to bring in more space. We need to integrate more sovereignty, is Taurus. You don't have to be friends with everybody. You don't have to do what everybody else is doing. Mars retrograde wants to do, Mars, things differently. How we use our drive, our passion, our energy. Mars is action. And Mars retrograde is, let's do this, I don't know. Mars is typically very, very instinctual. And when Mars is retrograde, that typical instinctual outward reactivity starts to become more hesitant, starts to be more considerate, and this is very unnatural and frustrating to Mars, who likes to go ahead, be the penetrator, initiator, way paver, opening up new dimensions, and it's just like, I want to go this way, but wait a minute, is that really what I want to do? This is how we were doing things, and it's working, but I don't know, is this really working? And this can, again, create a lot of necessary frustration. So to pause, roll back, and check in with ourselves, is this really a reflection of our true desires, who we actually are as individual people? Or is this just what our family expects us, the community expects from us, the New Age movement expects from us, the astrological community expects from us? Aquarius is the hive mind. It is this outer objective scrutiny, like groups of people looking through microscopes, measuring our every little move, and this has conditioned us in the past. How we're supposed to behave, what we're supposed to do. And the point is, Aquarius is about liberation. It's about breaking free out of the consensus, stereotypical social way of doing things, so to pioneer and invent better and improved ways. And so the nature of the energy is full steam ahead. Mars square to Uranus. Let's break free. Let's do it. Let's invent the new. Let's do it differently. And it's like, you know what? If we're not going to do it differently, if we're going to resist change, life's going to change anyways. The nature of this time is we need to do it differently or go insane, and it's going to all change anyways. Now, Mars is coming up to a third quarter square to Uranus on August 1st. And this also creates a lot of restlessness. Let's talk about the nervous system and restlessness on a little detour before we continue. Because there's so much physical restless, highly erratic energy. I mean, you can feel it through me, right? It's like, wow, calm down. Take a chill pill. Breathe. It's not a big deal, you know. And we've got a Mercury retrograde happening the day before this eclipse. You know, the mind can be so overloaded with all this information. This means this, A plus B equals C, blah, 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 blah. And our mind can just take all of this and run with it. Oh my gosh! Mercury is like we reach a dead end and it feels like we're in a rat maze. And it's just like, but I turned right and then left and then right and then left and then left and then right and then left and then left. That's supposed to bring me to the end, and it didn't. Now I'm facing a brick wall. What am I going to do? I'm a failure. I just wasted a whole bunch of time. And of course, Mercury is stationing retrograde, joining 6 other planets. If we consider Uranus stationing retrograde, 7 other planets if you consider Chiron retrograde. When all of these planets are retrograde, it is rolling back, redoing, reviewing, and renewing. And it has to require patience and flexibility and taking everything with a grain of salt to see the higher perspective, to see how these changes are actually in service to us in the long term, even though there can be this temporary frustration, like looking at the dead end. So Mercury stations retrograde at 23 degrees of Leo on Thursday, July 26th. And then is going to retrograde back to 11 degrees Leo on August 19th. So the fixed signs are getting a lot of attention. You'll want to check in your chart the early degrees of the fixed signs where this lunar eclipse is going to be stirring up this radical, progressive, revolutionary energy. And the later degrees of the fixed signs is where this Mercury retrograde is going to be causing this reviewing, this renewing, this mental discerning and decongesting. Removing all of the people, the facts, the things that get in the way of Leo, which is our essential creative purpose, our essential unique expression. Who we were as children before the world happened to us is what we are reverting back to. When Mercury is retrograde, it requires decluttering all of the mental concepts, understandings, again, friend groups, other groups, all of their nitpicky comments, blah, 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 blah. This can be a Mercury retrograde where we're going back to childhood. Leo, we may be running into old friends from childhood, and they might be reflecting back who we were in the past. Or, you know, things that we've forgotten, experiences that we forgot, you know. And that can be causing this necessary review. Is this who I actually am? Is this my self-expression? Is this person really my friend? Is there a part of myself that I sacrificed in the past? Where is this inner child? How can I release my true self-expression? And that's where this dead end and this frustration, and it's like, oh, but there's these duties, and there's these things, and there's these limitations. And I only have so much energy, and I only have so much time. And so Mercury retrograde requires this necessary tapping into the bigger picture. Mercury retrograde connects us more with Jupiter, the opposite of Mercury. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is opposite to Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is like the bird's eye view topographical map, looking at the rat maze from above. Oh look, I went this way, this way, this way, and I'm in a dead end. But if I back up these steps and I try a different route, then I can find another possibility. And so this is what we can mentally bear in the back of our mind, is these challenges and frustrations may be coming up, and I may be having instinctual reactions, but these reactions and these challenges are actually in service of my own exploration, so to discover what it is that I want to do, what I actually desire, that is in a deeper honoring of my soul, and what it is that I'm here to do throughout life. And we're removing all this claustrophobia by being hyper-aware of it. Mars and Uranus is going to wake us up to any superficial limitation that does not acknowledge who we actually are. All of the bullshit can become more crystal clear and apparent, and that's where the frustration, it's not necessarily fun to smell that bullshit. And yet it gives us the opportunity to discern, and we've got the months to come. This doesn't have to happen overnight. Slow, steady, patient. Maybe I should, I don't know, take a little bit of my own medicine. So, how can we calm the nervous system in a highly erratic, frustrated time? Well, we begin by taking a deep breath, right? Oh, it's gonna be okay. I don't know, let's check. The camera seems to still be recording. That's a very good sign. I feel like I can calm down a little more now. Now, this restlessness, this erratic nature, this can also be triggers, like we said. Mars triggers instinctual reactions. That really upsets me. That really pisses me off. This is a total lunar eclipse. We have powerful emotional reactivity coming up. I am so sick of feeling claustrophobic. I'm so sick of feeling cocooned. And that's where this reaction happens, and it can happen instinctually. And of course, we're not trying to destroy ourselves or another person or our environment. We're trying not to allow this frustration and this anger to become destructive. However, is anger, frustration inherently negative? No. That's a really important point. Because in this spiritual New Age movement that still loves to circulate very outdated old teachings, being covered up with New Age teachings, some of these teachings actually make us feel worse. When we get angry, we feel like there's something wrong with us. We feel like we're losing our spiritual center, and then we repress our feelings, we repress our anger, which makes the situation worse. So when we have reactions, it's not inherently a problem. It's an opportunity for us to be the soul detective investigating why. Why do I have this reaction? Why don't I want to do that? Or why did I do this? You know? Mars retrograde, highly instinctual, then hesitation. Oh, I'm going to do this. Wait, why am I doing this? Oh, I'm feeling so angry. Wait, why? Oh, I'm going to break free and fuck you guys. I'm going in my own direction. Wait, what the heck am I doing? Why did I just say screw them? You know? And so this necessary reflection, so much retrograde, so much to process. And so anger and frustration in itself is raw energy, raw potential. It is like an inner flame of passion. And by holding this inner flame of passion like an inner child, and embracing that child like it's okay if you're angry and you're not settled down, it's okay if you're upset and you can't stop crying, I am the mother to you and I embrace you as you are, so you are safe to feel. You are safe to release. you are safe to process. That allows us to release all of this energy in an actually constructive way. For example, I'm pissed off with how things are being done in the world. Well, I don't need to destroy myself or break a bunch of dishes or, punch a hole in the wall. I can use that frustration and anger towards the prison that I feel in being in this world. And you know what? I'm going to get out of prison by creating something different. I'm going to harness this anger and this frustration to use it as a jet fuel to go in my own direction. And so, again, with this Mercury retrograde coupled with this eclipse in Aquarius, this may be a need to cut the cords with the groups, the people that don't reflect back ourselves. It's like, you truly don't get me. You're repeating my past. You're being abusive. This isn't what I want to do. This isn't reflecting my own sexual desires. I've been conforming to yours, so on and so forth. The point is to effectively cut the cords. We can't resent or disdain that person, which is like punishing ourselves with the anger. Necessary forgiveness means, we're cutting the cords and, we've learned lessons together, but I've got my own direction to go on. And you don't even have to say that or bring that up to the other person. It's just a clean, simple break. Let's go, And that's how to efficiently come out of this claustrophobia without accidentally recreating it or increasing it by getting into a fight or taking all of this anger and frustration on everybody else. Aquarius can be that scrutinizing that we're doing to others. Oh, you're doing this wrong. You should change how you're doing that. Oh, it could be so much better, It's like, well, how are we handling our own energy as Mars retrograde? We don't need to depend on other people. And yet these reactions may be necessary to learn about where this change is taking us. This is a total eclipse happening on the moon's south node, which is the past. Past themes coming up. Past themes dealing with how we've handled anxiety or restlessness or trauma in this highly unstable period. And this Mars retrograde in the South Node is a huge opportunity to bust out of any ruts or stagnation. I mean, now is the time. And when do we bust out of a rut? When do we end a bad habit? It's when that bad habit becomes so disgustingly imprisoning. It's like, wow, I'm just so sick of you. So for example, really common phenomenon is people who deal with a lot of early childhood trauma or instability, sexual oppression, blah, 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 blah. We form various coping mechanisms, and for trauma, it's usually disassociation. Disassociation is a natural way of dealing with trauma because our nervous system becomes so overstimulated and so overwhelmed, we cannot process all the information coming at us at the time where it's happening. So we have to necessarily disassociate and fragment those parts of ourselves until we are in a safe enough container to come back into our body and process those feelings. Well, this is a time where we can be processing these past traumas, or we can be addressing, this is how I've handled dealing with anxiety or trauma in the past. I disassociate from my body. I get out of my feelings. I go onto the computer and Facebook. I get on television. I smoke a bunch of weed. Very, very common disassociating coping mechanism. The nervous system's ruled by Uranus and Aquarius. Uranus Aquarius also deals with trauma and disassociation. And weed and marijuana is a similar disassociating, getting out of the body, shooting into the mind, and then not having to process. And so again, it's like these coping mechanisms and bad habits serve a purpose while we are in the thick of it, until we are in a safe enough environment to loosen these things. And that's what this eclipse is all about. We keep coming back to Uranus and Taurus, the need for sovereignty and space. For example, I'm in a kind of uncomfortable environment and my body doesn't feel good and I have to work so much and I don't really get to relax. There's no space to relax. Taurus is like Uranus wants to invent new ways to relax so that way our nervous system can settle. Coming back to that, when we're in the midst of a panic attack and there's too much information coming at us and we start to freak out because of the claustrophobia, and this is when, the self-saboteur comes out and everything goes straight to hell. In the midst of an intense panic attack, pull out your big toe here and press down into the center of the toe, beneath your toenail. Not right under your toenail, but the center of your toe. press down as hard as you frickin' can into the center of the toe. It may be a little uncomfortable, it may even be a little painful, but it's going to shoot you back into your body and calm you down. So again, Uranus and Taurus, we're having to figure out how to relax, how to create this necessary spaciousness, not just in our environment, but in ourselves as well, is ultimately the high octave of Taurus. The wisdom that the kingdom of heaven is within us. So example, meditation, slowing down the nervous system, breathing, talking slower than I am now through this whole thing, allows us to get centered and spacious within ourselves, you know? And the point is, because it may be difficult to do that, this is like the new endeavor just beginning this year, with Uranus just entering Taurus this year. He's going to transit Taurus the next near decade. So this is just initiating. Oh man, there's no privacy. There's cameras and microphones everywhere. And the whole point is, in this social media contemporary era, everybody is a crowd. That's a quote coming from one of my spiritual teachers, Amachi. Everybody is a crowd in America. Of course we are. You know, we're going on to social media to try and escape our feelings and feel better and get interactions, and we carry our cell phones and our laptops with us everywhere. Do we ever get privacy? Do we ever get time to settle down? So there's a need for sovereignty. There's a need for relaxation here. We're changing what no longer aligns with our deeper desires. This Mars retrograde conjoined this total lunar eclipse, it can be a frustration from what's blocked. What are our essential desires? And past dynamics that are revealing what was previously unconscious can bring those unconscious themes and dynamics up to the conscious to recognize them. And again, that can be frustrating because it's just like, oh, I never even knew that these things existed. I never knew that I was surrounded by this bullshit. And that is the necessary opportunity to recognize, okay, here's the challenge, but it's not the end. It's not the end of the world. What we're feeling in our bodies and our nervous system is probably not reflecting reality right now. So the point of all of this slowing down and breathing and self-reflection and having backup plans for everything and being as flexible as humanly possible is knowing that greater possibilities do exist. Aquarius and Uranus is the bringer of new dimensional possibilities. Like, we didn't know the Earth was a globe until we went to outer space and saw it as a globe. And many people go to outer space and come back and say it's a globe. Well, that's a objective, irrefutable example of seeing. This is how it is. This is Aquarius. So this objectivity of seeing everything very distantly can also be used to our advantage. Not in a way of copping out or running away or disassociating from these problems, sweeping them under the rug as if they don't exist, but rather seeing it from this very objective space, the bird's eye view topographical map. Ah, this is what we're dealing with. Wow, I've never seen it from this very distant objective perspective before. And from this perspective, I now have the opportunity to make new realizations and discoveries in terms of what reality actually is. This eclipse wants to do reality differently. And this isn't just a full moon. The eclipse season carries through the next 6 months. So let's bear in mind, this is taking us through, now through winter time in the northern hemisphere. Reverse that in the southern hemisphere, right? 6 months from now, this is this period of this experimental, revolutionary, how can we do this differently? How can we push on boundaries? The sun is trying to Chiron on the same day. There is a need to express any sense of woundedness. I feel hurt, or I'm dealing with this challenge. Not in the way that is blaming or gripping onto others, but as an expression of our natural journey through life. This is who I am. This is what I've dealt with. This Mercury retrograde happening in Leo is this reversion back into what is our core creative purpose. Who were we when we were a child, before life and conditioning and parents and teachers and the world and bosses happened to us? What was that spontaneous child? You know? Because that spontaneous, playful child in many respects is an accurate reflection of who we truly are in our soul. And we're all unique. Aquarius is we're all a little strange. We're all eccentric. We're all weird. Is reality. Is nature. And so honor yourself. Honor your unique way of doing things. Give yourself the time, the space to actualize your true individual and independent desires. And then break free. Give yourself permission. Be confident. Initiate your own direction. Create the communities, Aquarius, that reflect back to you what you value, the progress that you want to see in the world, the humanitarian endeavors that you want to contribute back to. And if these groups and clubs and online things are just superficial, trying to get there but not quite, well, then it's just an opportunity for us to, one baby step at a time, figure out a way of taking this direction forward, so that way it can actually be a deeper reflection of what feels truly fulfilling to us. Mars and Uranus want liberation, freedom. This is about freedom. And this cutting of the cords isn't about being mean. It's not about rejecting or tossing people to the side. It's understanding we cannot be actualizing our own individual desires and try to be everybody's friend to the point of conformity simultaneously. So this Mercury retrograde is about rekindling a relationship with that creative purpose. And this is how I can express this purpose. And we're not having this served to us. We are exploring these things through the next month and months to come. It's a big experiment, and we are the mad scientists that get to mix and match these different chemicals to see what reacts and see what doesn't. And in this way, we can create new friendships. On the day of this eclipse, Venus is trine to Pluto. New friends, new connections, new ways of sharing what we value that allows us to share the deeper, truer part of ourself. We also have Venus in an opposition to Neptune coming up this Tuesday, July 24th. You know, this can be a time of fruition. You know, these are the romantic, creative relationship endeavors that we've been trying to put together since February, that last Venus-Neptune conjunction. And here's how it's paying off. We're breaking out of bounds. We're doing it differently. We're coming into our own. We're finding our own way of sharing our desires and the groups that reflect who we actually are. And it feels exciting. It feels liberating. There is this spaciousness. We get to be the pioneers that we came here in the first place to be. And so I am absolutely wishing you so much the best in this highly innovative, exciting, and so much potential for liberation and freedom. Please share your own experiences in the comments below. Sharing your own thoughts, your own feedback is a really great way of seeing these collective themes as they're reflected off of other people. And I do want to take one moment to address my own changes that I'm going to be doing, because I feel the need to address the fact that I've been talking for probably over half an hour and I can't cover everything that's going on with this eclipse. Some 20,000 people watching these videos each and every person is going to have a unique way of experiencing this. So in terms of covering this stuff, it's like being a weatherman when I do these videos. It can only therefore be general. And I hope that you can understand and embrace that. We're talking about the collective themes that affects millions and millions of people at one time. So this may not be what you're experiencing on this particular day or how you're feeling, so on and so forth, but share your subjective feelings. Share your subjective experience. And this is a great way of finding what those collective themes may be, even as we go on living our own unique and individual lives. To see how this eclipse is going to affect you more individually, check 4 degrees of Aquarius in your chart. What house has 4 degrees of Aquarius is going to be the house where this eclipse is largely playing out. Check the early degrees of the fixed signs. Whatever planets you have at those early degrees in your chart is going to be where a lot of restless, radical, pioneering energy is inviting the reinvention of those planetary functions. I'm also going to be changing how I do my own group and sharing in terms of Patreon and YouTube and all of these things. I want to focus more on connecting with community, with people that want to really learn astrology themselves, or get a deeper, more closed circuit community feel where we can create feedback and learn from each other. So I'm going to be putting an online forum community with my Patreon community. Anybody who donates, whether it's $1, $2, whatever it may be per month, to be a part of my Patreon community will have access to this closed circuit online forum That way it can be a little bit more closed circuit, have a more intimate community feel, and people will be able to share their stories, post questions, and I'll be able to respond. And the forum platform's pretty cool. It's new technology. It's a new experiment like this camera. Hope all this wasn't wasted energy. You never know. That's the nature of this time. If one way doesn't work, we go another way. But I do hope to connect with you. I look forward to sharing more, and I appreciate your own feedback. So thanks again for tuning in, wishing you all the best, and please do remember to breathe and take care.